When you grow up hearing the same story over and over again, you start to believe it's carved in stone. For as long as I can remember, my parents had one promise: we're saving every penny so you can have the life we never had. Those words were like a lullaby to me, whispered through years of sleepless nights when bills piled high and dad worked 2 shifts just to keep food on the table. I believed them. I believed every single word because why wouldn't I? They were my parents, my heroes, the people who'd do anything for me. Our house wasn't big, but it was filled with dreams. Dreams they painted in my mind like murals, college dorm rooms, graduation gowns, and a future that sparkled brighter than anything we had. I didn't care that my clothes came from thrift stores or that we ate pasta 5 nights a week. I thought all of it had a purpose, like puzzle pieces forming the picture they promised me: a better life. Mom would smile and say, "Sweetheart, this is what sacrifice looks like. One day, you'll understand." And I would nod, hugging my beat-up textbooks, telling myself it was worth it. Every time I saw other kids with new shoes or expensive gadgets, I reminded myself, we're saving for college. This is for something bigger. And I worked hard to make their sacrifices count. Straight A's, advanced classes, volunteering, everything to make them proud. Teachers told me I had a bright future, and I held onto those words like oxygen. The dream felt so close I could almost taste it. Senior year was a blur of SAT scores, college applications, and nights spent writing essays on an old laptop that overheated every hour. Still, I loved every second of it because I knew what it meant. Soon, I'd walk across that stage, toss my cap in the air, and my parents would cheer from the front row with tears in their eyes. But here's the thing about dreams. Sometimes they're just smoke and mirrors, hiding something you're not ready to see. Looking back now, there were signs, little cracks in the perfect story they told me. Like how dad started locking his phone every time he got a text. Or the nights mom said she was working late, even though her job at the local diner never kept her past 8 p.m. There were whispered arguments behind closed doors, credit card statements that disappeared before I could glance at them, and that one time I saw dad pull up in a car I didn't recognize and swore it belonged to a friend. But I brushed it all off. Why? Because I trusted them. Because I believed in that college fund like it was sacred. Then came the day everything changed. It was 2 weeks before graduation, and I was buzzing with excitement. I'd gotten into my dream school on partial scholarship, sure, but we could handle the rest with what they'd saved. We'd talked about it for years. It was the plan. That morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, filling out housing forms when Mom walked in. She looked tired. Not her usual end-of-shift tired, but drained in a way I couldn't explain. Her smile didn't reach her eyes, and when I told her the final tuition deposit was due soon, she froze. Just for a second. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I did. She changed the subject so fast it felt like whiplash. "How about pancakes?" she said, like flipping batter could erase the tension in the air. That was the first time I felt a knot in my stomach. A small, quiet voice whispering, "Something's wrong." I pushed the thought away. We'd been through so much, and I didn't want to doubt them. Not now, not when everything I'd worked for was finally within reach. But later that day, when they both left for work, I couldn't shake the feeling. So, I did something I'd never done before. Something that would change everything. I opened Dad's old laptop, the one he barely used anymore, and logged into the online banking account. I told myself it was harmless. I just wanted to see how much was there, to reassure myself that we were okay, that the dream was still alive. But when the page loaded, my breath caught in my throat. The balance stared back at me like a punch to the gut. Not the tens of thousands I'd imagined after years of sacrifice. Not even a few thousand. $132.47. That's all. I thought it was a mistake. I refreshed the page. Logged out. Logged back in. But the number didn't change. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely click. Where was the money? Where was everything they'd promised me? Scrolling through the transactions, My heart sank even further. There were withdrawals I didn't recognize, big ones. Hotel names, high-end restaurants, charges from places hours away from our town. My parents weren't saving for my future. They were spending it. On what? I didn't know yet. But I could feel the ground cracking beneath me. For the first time in my life, I didn't believe in their story anymore. And I had no idea that what I was about to uncover wouldn't just break the trust between us. It would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family and about who they really were. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst through my chest. $132.47. That was it. That was all that was left after years of promises, sacrifices, and reassurances. I tried to make sense of it. Maybe the money was moved somewhere else. Maybe they had another account. People do that, right? I clung to those desperate thoughts like a drowning person clings to a piece of driftwood. But the more I scrolled, the faster that hope sank. There were no transfers to savings, no college fund hidden under another account name. There was nothing. Just transaction after transaction bleeding the account dry. Hotel stays in places I'd never heard of. Restaurants so expensive I couldn't even imagine what the plates looked like. And clothing stores that definitely weren't the thrift shops Mom and I usually went to. It felt like I was looking at someone else's life. Not the life we had. Not the family that counted pennies and stretched leftovers. I sat frozen for what felt like hours, tears welling in my eyes, burning like acid. All those nights I stayed up late studying while they worked extra shifts. All those times I said no to hanging out with friends because I didn't want them to spend more money on me. I thought it was for something real. Something worth it. But this felt like betrayal in its purest form. I closed the laptop slowly, my hands trembling. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. Questions flooded my mind, louder and louder until they drowned out everything else. Why? How long? Who were they spending it with? Were they living a double life? That last thought made my stomach turn. I grabbed my phone and went outside, pacing back and forth across the cracked driveway. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft pinks and oranges, but it felt like my whole world had gone dark. I needed answers. And I needed them now. The first person I thought to call was my best friend, Kayla. We'd known each other since freshman year, and if anyone could calm me down, it was her. My fingers shook as I dialed her number. Hello? Her voice was warm, familiar, but I could barely get the words out. Kayla. Something's wrong. What happened? I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. Saying it out loud made it real, and I wasn't ready for real. But I forced myself. I checked my parents' bank account. The money they said they were saving for college, it's gone. All of it. There was a pause on the other end. Then, softly, gone? Like completely? $132 left. My voice cracked, and before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. Oh my God, Liv. She used my nickname the way she always did when she was trying to comfort me. Maybe it's a mistake? Maybe the money's in another account? I thought that too, but, Kayla, there were charges. Hotels. Restaurants. Fancy places. They've been spending it all. My voice broke again. She let out a slow breath. Have you talked to them? No. They're both working late tonight. But when they come home, I have to. I can't pretend like I didn't see this. Kayla hesitated. Liv. What if there's a reason? What if they're in trouble? Her words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Trouble. I hadn't even considered that. Were they gambling? Paying off someone? Or worse? I shook the thought away. I don't know. I feel like my whole life has been a lie. Kayla stayed on the phone with me for an hour, talking me through every possible explanation, but none of them made sense. Nothing could justify what I'd seen. When I finally hung up, the house was still empty. Mom and Dad wouldn't be back for another 2 hours, and the silence felt suffocating. I walked inside, sat on the couch, and stared at the family photos on the wall. Birthdays, holidays, smiles so wide they seemed real. But now, every frame felt like a joke. I tried to distract myself by scrolling through social media, but my mind kept spiraling. Every sound outside made me jump. Every car passing by made my heart race. I rehearsed what I'd say when they walked through that door, but no matter how many times I went over it in my head, the words sounded small compared to the storm raging inside me. Finally, I heard it, the crunch of tires on gravel, the hum of Dad's old truck pulling into the driveway. My chest tightened. I moved to the window and saw them both getting out, laughing about something. Laughing. Like everything was normal. How could they be so calm when they just destroyed my future? I backed away from the window and stood in the middle of the living room, my fists clenched, heart pounding like a drum. The front door opened, and there they were, Mom in her faded diner uniform, Dad smelling faintly of motor oil from the garage. They looked ordinary, innocent. "Hey, Liv," Dad said with a smile. "You eat yet?" That broke me. The casualness of it. The normalcy. Like we weren't standing on the edge of something that could tear us apart. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "We need to talk." They exchanged a quick glance. The kind of glance parents share when they know something's wrong. "What is it, honey?" Mom asked gently. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I checked the bank account. The change in their faces was instant. The color drained from Mom's cheeks. Dad's smile faltered. "You." "What?" Mom's voice was barely above a whisper. "I had to," I said, louder now, the anger boiling to the surface. "I wanted to make sure everything was ready for the tuition payment. But there's nothing there. Nothing. After all these years of you telling me, promising me, you were saving every penny for college. And there's $132 left." The words came out like shards of glass, cutting through the silence. They didn't speak. They didn't deny it. They just stood there, frozen, like statues in a nightmare. Finally, Dad opened his mouth, his voice low and unsteady. "Liv, listen." "No," I snapped, tears streaming down my face. "Don't you dare tell me to listen. I've been listening my whole life. Listening to every lie you fed me about sacrifice and saving and building a future together. And now I find out it was all for nothing?" Mom stepped forward, her hands trembling. "Sweetheart, it's not what you think." "Then tell me," I screamed, the words echoing off the walls. "Tell me why there's nothing left. Tell me what you spent it on. Tell me why you lied to me." The silence that followed was heavier than any answer they could have given. And in that silence, I knew whatever they were hiding wasn't just about money. It was bigger, darker, and it was about to tear everything apart. For a moment, nobody moved. The words hung in the air like smoke, choking the room. My parents stood there, faces pale, eyes darting like trapped animals searching for an escape. I had never seen them like this before, cornered, exposed. "Liv." Mom's voice cracked, soft and pleading. "Please sit down. We'll explain everything." "Explain?" My laugh came out bitter, jagged. "You think an explanation is going to fix this? That it's going to bring back the years of trust you just set on fire? Just, please." Dad's tone was firm, but his eyes betrayed something else. Guilt, fear, and maybe even shame. I didn't sit. I crossed my arms, my heart pounding so hard I thought they could hear it. "Fine. Explain. Because right now, the only thing I know is that you took the future you promised me and flushed it down the drain. So, start talking." Mom looked at Dad. He looked at her. There was this silent conversation between them, one I wasn't invited to. Finally, Dad sighed, running his hands over his face like he was trying to wipe away the mess of this moment. "Liv," he started, his voice low and heavy. "The money. It's gone. We're not going to lie about that. But it's not what you think. We didn't blow it on things we didn't need. It wasn't for us." My stomach twisted. "Then what?" You giving it to charity? You helping strangers while your own daughter's future burns to ashes? No. Mom's voice cracked as tears welled in her eyes. Liv, please believe us. It wasn't for something bad. We were trying to protect you. That word, protect, hit me like a slap. Protect me? From what? Protect me? I spat. By ruining everything I've worked for? By lying to my face every single day for years? Mom's hands shook as she reached for me, but I pulled back. She let them fall, her shoulders collapsing as if the weight of this secret had finally crushed her. It's your brother, Dad said suddenly, the words slicing through the air like a blade. I froze. My brother. Ethan? My voice trembled. What about him? He's fine. He's in college. He's not fine. Dad's voice cracked, and I saw tears brimming in his eyes. The man who never cried, not even when Grandma died, was falling apart in front of me. Liv. Ethan's in trouble. Deep trouble. And we've been using the money to keep him alive. For a second, I couldn't even process what he said. The words sounded foreign, like they belonged to someone else's family, not mine. What? What are you talking about? My voice was barely a whisper. Mom stepped in, her face streaked with tears. Ethan has a problem, sweetheart. A gambling addiction. It started small, just a few bets with his friends at school. But then it grew. He got involved with people who... She stopped, her voice shaking so badly she couldn't finish. Dad picked up where she left off. People you don't mess with, Liv. Dangerous people. He owed them money. A lot of money. If we didn't pay, they would have hurt him. Maybe worse. I stood there, numb like my brain had short-circuited. My brother. The golden boy. The straight-A student who left for college with a full ride and a big smile. The one they always compared me to when they said, follow Ethan's example. That Ethan? You expect me to believe this? I snapped, even though a part of me already did. It explained the secrecy, the late nights, the locked phones. It explained everything and nothing all at once. Mom nodded frantically, tears dripping onto her faded uniform. It's the truth. We didn't know what else to do. We thought we could fix it before you found out. We thought if we just helped him, everything would go back to normal. Normal. The word felt like a cruel joke. How much? I asked, my voice hollow. They exchanged another look. How much? I screamed. Dad swallowed hard. Almost everything. 50,000. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the back of the couch to keep from falling. 50,000. Gone. Years of scrimping, of birthday gifts skipped, of Christmases with dollar store decorations, all gone because my brother couldn't control himself. I wanted to scream. To throw something. To break every picture frame in the house. But all I could do was stand there, trembling, as the truth wrapped itself around me like barbed wire. You lied to me. I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of it. Every single day, you looked me in the eye and told me we were saving for my future. And the whole time, you were cleaning up his mess. Liv. Mom reached for me again, but I stepped back so fast she froze. Don't. I said, my voice sharp as glass. Don't you dare touch me. Don't you dare act like you did this for me. You did this for him. You chose him over me. Tears blurred my vision, hot and relentless. You ruined my life to save his. Liv, please, Dad said, his voice breaking. We love you. We love you both. We were trying to hold this family together. Hold it together? I laughed bitterly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. Congratulations. You didn't hold it together. You burned it to the ground. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, feel the walls closing in. I couldn't stay there another second. I grabbed my keys and bolted for the door. Liv, please. Mom's voice cracked like glass, but I didn't stop. I slammed the door behind me and ran to my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the keys in the ignition. As the engine roared to life, I caught a glimpse of them through the window. Mom collapsed in Dad's arms, both of them crying like the world had ended. Maybe it had. As I drove away, the tears finally spilled over, blinding me as the night swallowed the road ahead. My parents had lied. My brother had destroyed everything. And the life I thought was waiting for me? It was gone. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Because if Ethan wasn't that deep, what else were they hiding? I didn't even realize where I was driving until I pulled into the parking lot of the 24-hour diner where Kayla worked the late shift. My car screeched to a halt, and before I even turned the ignition off, she was already at the door, wide-eyed, because she must have seen my headlights flying into the lot like a bat out of hell. "Liv?" she said, running out as I stumbled from the car. "Oh my God, what happened? What did they say?" I tried to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. My chest heaved, and the tears wouldn't stop. Finally, I choked out, "It's Ethan." Her brows knitted. "Ethan? What about him?" He's been gambling. Owed money. They used everything, to bail him out. 50,000, Kayla. It's all gone. My college fund. Everything." Her face twisted in shock, her jaw dropping like she couldn't even comprehend it. "Are you serious? Ethan? Mr. Perfect? The guy who used to lecture us about making good choices?" "Yeah." My voice cracked like broken glass. "That guy." Kayla wrapped her arms around me, and I collapsed into her shoulder, sobbing until my whole body shook. The weight of the truth pressed down on me like an avalanche. Not just the money, though God, that was huge, but the lies. The betrayal. The fact that I had been living in a fairy tale while my family played out a completely different story behind closed doors. When I finally pulled away, my throat was raw, my face blotchy. "I have to talk to him," I said. "I have to hear it from his mouth. Because right now, I don't even know who my brother is." Kayla hesitated. "Do you think that's a good idea? You're not exactly calm right now." "I don't care," I said, my voice like steel even through the tremble. "He's in this mess because of his choices. And because of him, my life, my future, is ruined. He owes me an explanation." She didn't argue. She just nodded and grabbed my hand. "Then I'm coming with you." I shook my head. "No. This is between me and him. Liv." "No." My tone was firm, colder than I meant it to be. "I have to do this alone." Kayla looked like she wanted to fight me on it, but she didn't. She just pulled me into another quick hug before whispering, "Text me if anything feels off. Please." "I will," I promised, even though my hands were already gripping my keys, itching to leave. It took me 30 minutes to drive to Ethan's campus. 30 minutes of gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. 30 minutes of replaying every memory I had of him like they were scenes from a movie I couldn't recognize anymore. The big brother who taught me how to ride a bike, who told me not to care what other kids said about my thrift store jeans, who swore he'd always have my back. How did that guy turn into someone who gambled away not just his future, but mine? By the time I pulled up outside his off-campus apartment, the rage had solidified into something sharper. Something lethal. I didn't even knock. I pounded on the door like I was ready to break it down. It opened after a few seconds, and there he was, my brother, my parents' golden boy, standing in sweatpants and a faded hoodie, looking tired but calm. Until he saw me. "Liv?" His brows furrowed. "What are you? What the hell did you do?" I cut him off, shoving past him into the apartment. The place reeked faintly of beer and something stale, like bad decisions left to rot. "Whoa, okay," he said, closing the door and turning to me. "What's going on? Don't play dumb." My voice came out like a whip. "I know, Ethan. I know everything. About the gambling. About the money. About Mom and Dad bailing you out while lying to my face for years." His expression shifted in an instant, from confusion to guilt to something like shame. He didn't even try to deny it. Liv. He rubbed the back of his neck, his eyes dropping to the floor. I was going to tell you. When? My voice broke. After you'd burned through every dollar they had? After I had to drop out of college because there's nothing left? You were going to tell me then? He winced like I'd slapped him, but I didn't care. I wanted him to hurt. I screwed up, he admitted, his voice low. I know I did. I didn't think it would get this bad. This bad? I laughed, but it sounded hollow, ugly. Ethan, you destroyed everything. Everything I worked for. Do you even get that? Or are you too busy feeling sorry for yourself? Don't do that. He snapped suddenly, his voice rising. Don't act like this was easy for me. I didn't want them to use the money. I told them not to. Bullshit. I cut him off, the word exploding out of me like a grenade. You let them. You let them drain every cent of the future they promised me because you couldn't control yourself. And now you're what? Standing here in your cozy little apartment, acting like you're the victim? His jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. For a second, I thought he might yell back, but when he spoke, his voice was quieter, deadly calm. You think I wanted this? He said, his eyes burning into mine. You think I wanted to get so deep I couldn't see a way out? You have no idea what it's like, Liv. No idea what it's like to feel like you're drowning and the only thing keeping you afloat is the very thing pulling you under. I stared at him, my anger momentarily colliding with something else, fear. Not for me. For him. Because in that moment, he didn't look like the big brother I grew up with. He looked broken. Hollow. Like someone who'd been swallowed by a darkness I couldn't even begin to understand. But the sympathy flickered and died as fast as it came. Because no matter how broken he was, his choices had consequences. And I was the one paying for them. I don't care, I said coldly, my voice shaking but fierce. You don't get to ruin my life because you couldn't handle yours. Liv. No, I shouted, tears streaming down my face. You were supposed to be my role model. My protector. And instead, you turned me into collateral damage. He flinched like the words physically hit him, and for a second, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, suffocating. Finally, I wiped my face with the back of my hand and turned toward the door. Liv, please, he said, his voice cracking. Don't hate me. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. I didn't turn around. I don't hate you, Ethan, I whispered. I just don't know who you are anymore. Then I walked out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. As I stormed down the hallway, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. I didn't care if it was Kayla, Mom, Dad. I didn't want to hear from any of them. Because right then, the only thing I knew for sure was that my family wasn't just broken. It was shattered beyond repair. Or so I thought. Because what I didn't know then was that the worst was yet to come. That the secret about the money wasn't the only thing they were hiding. And the next truth I uncovered? It would destroy everything all over again. The drive back home felt endless. Every mile stretched like an open wound, every streetlight flashing by like a cruel reminder of how quickly everything had fallen apart. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my face was numb from crying. The house was dark except for a faint glow from the kitchen window. They were waiting for me. I killed the engine and sat in silence for a few moments, gripping the steering wheel like it could hold me together. But nothing could. Not anymore. When I walked inside, Mom was sitting at the table, her hands wrapped around a mug of cold coffee. Dad stood behind her, pacing like a caged animal. They both looked up when I came in, their faces etched with worry and something else, desperation. Liv? Mom said softly, her voice hoarse from crying. We were so scared when you left. I didn't answer. I didn't even sit down. I just stood there, staring at them like strangers. Because that's what they felt like now. People I'd once loved. People I thought I knew, but didn't. I talked to him, I said finally, my voice flat. They didn't respond. You should have told me, I continued, my tone sharper now. You should have given me the truth instead of feeding me lies for years. I had a right to know what was happening in my own family. Dad opened his mouth, but I raised a hand. Don't. Just. Don't make excuses. I get it. You wanted to protect me. But all you did was destroy my trust. Liv. Mom's eyes brimmed with tears. We were terrified. Ethan was in so deep. Those people, they made threats. We thought if you knew, you'd hate him. You'd hate us. I don't hate you, I said quietly, though part of me wanted to. But I can't look at you the same way anymore. The words hung there like shards of glass. And in that silence, I realized something. They weren't the only ones lying. I'd been lying too, to myself. Pretending everything was perfect. Pretending that if I worked hard enough, loved them enough, the dream would stay intact. But it didn't. And maybe it was never real to begin with. I can't stay here, I said suddenly. The decision hit me like a lightning bolt, terrifying, but strangely liberating. Mom's eyes widened. Liv, please. No, I said firmly. I need space. I need to figure out who I am without all of this chaos. Without lies. Without depending on promises that never come true. Dad stepped forward, panic flashing across his face. Where will you go? What about college? I let out a shaky breath. I don't know yet. But I'll figure it out. Because if there's one thing this has taught me, it's that the only person I can truly count on is myself. They tried to stop me, but I didn't let them. I packed a duffel bag that night, just the essentials, clothes, my laptop, and the college acceptance letter that suddenly felt like both a trophy and a cruel joke. Kayla's parents agreed to let me crash in their guest room for a while, and by the next morning, I was gone. Walking out of that house was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than any exam, any heartbreak, any sleepless night studying. Because this wasn't just leaving a place. It was leaving the version of myself that believed in fairy tales. The weeks that followed were a blur of tears, job applications, and late-night talks with Kayla about how everything went so wrong. I picked up shifts at a local cafe, saved every tip I got, and started applying for emergency scholarships like my life depended on it, because it did. But then, just when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, the ground cracked even further. It was a Wednesday afternoon when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think your brother told you everything? He didn't. He owes us more than money. My blood ran cold. My hands trembled as I read it again and again, my mind spinning with possibilities. Was it a prank? Or was this the shadow of Ethan's mess creeping into my life? Before I could respond, another text came through. Tell your parents to answer their phones. Time's running out. That night, I called home. Dad picked up on the first ring, his voice tight, like he'd been expecting me. When I told him about the text, there was silence. Then, finally, a whisper. Liv, don't worry about this. We'll handle it. But I couldn't stop worrying. Because handle it was what they'd been saying all along, and look where that got us. For the next few days, I lived in a state of constant dread, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then, just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, it happened. Mom called, sobbing so hard I could barely make out the words. Ethan's gone. I felt the floor vanish beneath me. He left a note, she continued, choking on tears. He said he couldn't drag us down any further. He said he was sorry. The world blurred. My breath caught in my throat. All the anger, all the resentment, it melted away in an instant, replaced by something far worse. Fear. Kayla drove me to campus that night, and we joined the search, me, my parents, strangers with flashlights combing the dark like it could swallow him whole. Hours passed like minutes, every second stretching my heart tighter and tighter. And then, we found him. Alive. Sitting by the lake, staring at the water like it held all the answers he'd been searching for. When I saw him, something inside me broke, not in anger this time, but in grief. For the brother I thought I knew. For the family we used to be. I ran to him, tears streaming down my face, and without thinking, I wrapped my arms around him. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, his arms came around me too, and he whispered the words I never thought I'd hear. "I'm sorry, Liv, for everything." And in that moment, I realized something. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a choice you make over and over again, even when it hurts. It's been 6 months since that night. Things aren't perfect. They may never be, but they're better. Ethan's in treatment now, working through the addiction that almost destroyed us. My parents and I are rebuilding piece by fragile piece, and as for me, I didn't go to my dream school. I couldn't, but I'm taking classes at a community college, saving money, and planning for a future that's mine and mine alone. Because here's the truth. Life doesn't always go the way you planned. Sometimes it shatters, and you're left picking up pieces you didn't break. But if you're strong enough, if you fight hard enough, you can turn those broken pieces into something new. Something stronger. And that's what I'm doing. One day at a time.